Welcome to another episode of the Sports Bros Podcast, featuring the almighty B Live, the money man Scottie D, and your host, the head of creative, Eddy Cool. The Sports Bros Podcast is a sports podcast that's by the fans, for the fans, talking sports just the way you like it. And without any further ado, let's give it up for the Sports Bros. Once again, it's a wonderful Tuesday, and you know what time it is. Once again, it's time for your favorite sports podcast, none other than the Sports Bros Podcast. This is episode number 147. Yeah, that's right, 147 and running. And of course, you know I cannot do this by myself for the past it is our 3-year anniversary. We've been doing this thing for 3 years, fellas. Can you believe we've been doing this thing for 3 years?
Whew. Oh, man. Yeah, I can because I wouldn't be able to do it with two other good guys or like they like to call me the bad guy. It's all right, though. Hey. Oh, man.
One time with Scott Hall.
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo. And with that being said, now that I'm doing my incoherent rambling, I have two of the best co-hosts in the world. Introducing first, the almighty B Live.
What's happening? What's going on in the world today? I cannot believe I've been asking this question for 3 years, but y'all know why. Because the world is crazy and you know it. Hey, yo. Man. But I got to do this. I got to say this real quick. We can't take a week off too many times, man, because so much has happened. And shoot, today so much has happened. And one day, how do we fit this into our program? But I guarantee you that we will, as much as we fit in your forehead and Scottie D's whole head.
Wow. Wow.
Eli, just like I told Trey last week, the forehead gimmick, that gets old after a while. It's a lot of brains up in there. I said a lot of B-R-A-I-N-Z brains, Chico.
I'll lay it to rest. It's been going for 3 years, and for us, it's been going for 25 years. But man, you know what? You're right. But I digress. Go ahead and introduce the other guy, because even though he doesn't get old, he really does get old. All right. Yep. I said what I said. All right.
Oh, boy. Here we go. Shades and shots fired. And the other guy, the pride of Washington, Pennsylvania. He is the one, the only, the money man, Scottie D.
They're playing basketball. We love that basketball. Woohoo! March Madness. And here we are getting ready to start year 4 of Scott Donnelly and the Sports Bros podcast. I'm very excited.
We are not starting up. No, wrong. No, cut.
The Money Man, Scottie D, and the Sports Bros podcast. Starting year 4.
We are not doing this today. No.
With the main event, Eddy and B Live.
He over here changing nicknames. And changing we're not.
The main event, Money Man, Scottie D, and the Sports Bros podcast. Here we go, getting ready to start year 4. It's been a real pleasure, guys. Yeah, I am sad, like you guys, though, that one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, as we are speaking right now, has been taken off life support, and I guess at this point he is still alive, but it doesn't look good for the bad guy, Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon. But that was our dude, man. The guy that was the one that started the NWO back in the day, for those of you who are wrestling fans. Too sweet. So yeah, I hate to hear this news, but a lot of other stuff going on in the sports world. Basketball, baseball, football, hockey, all of them got stuff going on right now. UFC, golf, all that stuff is going on right now. I think even car racing, but I'm not watching that or talking about that. So Eddy Cool, let's strike up the band here and let's talk some sports.
All right, let's go ahead and dive into the top of the order. there's so much sports going on, it makes your head spin. But I was able to compile a list together of the most important stuff. As we know, fellas, it is March Madness. It is March conference championships, tournaments, so forth and so such. March Madness. B-Live has got our bracket challenge started, and we'll have more details on that later. And as far as the field of, it's 64, right? Or is it 68? I forgot.
68.
Okay. You got to play in games and stuff, right? All right, so here we go, fellas. I have one of two questions. The first question is, who do you feel got left out of this year's tournament? B-Live, you first.
Man, this one, it took a lot of thought because there was a lot of different things happening. I'm a regional type person, so it's one of those things. I really don't watch too much on the West Coast or other different places. So I'm just going to stick to one of the home teams, and that's going to be Wake Forest out of the ACC. At any given point in time in the history of the ACC and NCAA March Madness, could you imagine a team going 13-7 in the ACC and not make it into the dance? Yeah. That's unheard of, but that's also a testament of how down a year the ACC has been. Mm-hmm. And Wake Forest did not do themselves any favors by losing in the second round. I think they were second round, their fifth seed, so they played in the second round. Because if you 1 through 4 seeds in the ACC, you get 2 byes. Fifth through 8 seed get 1 bye. But yeah, they lost to a number 13 seed at Boston College. Ugh. And the writing was on the wall. But man, I just think that, out of a lot of teams, and here's also a testament to that, mid-majors are coming up. Just being in a big conference is not guaranteed that you're going to make it. But I think this Wake Forest 13-7 in the ACC, sitting at home, NIT bound. You know what it is. It is what it is. What you got to say on it, Scottie D?
I got to go with Pitt. You just got to give. You got to give him a chance. You got to give him a chance.
Scottie D, Gary McGee graduated a long time ago.
This is the time of year you always see the Kemba Walker crossing him over in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, poor fella.
McGee going on. Probably Texas A&M. Just from I didn't watch all these regular season games, but Texas A&M. It seemed like the SEC was the toughest conference. Because if you were looking at the records of like the 7th and 8th seeded teams in this tournament, they all had 20-some wins. I mean, this was a very good conference this year, and they had wins against Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, and Notre Dame. So they had some marquee wins, but I don't know. I would have gone with Pitt. You just gotta let them in and do their thing. You just got to give them a chance.
No, you don't. So now, according to Scottie D, he wants a 312 team bracket, so everybody gets a chance. This is expand the postseason to just everybody, just so Pitt can have a chance, and we're not doing that. Yes, no, so not doing.
I think they were very underrated this year. That was just my thoughts. Wow. And who was it? There was another team. Was it that won like 25, 27 games somewhere in that area? And lost in the conference championship, I believe, in one of the smaller conferences. I can't. I
want to say you may be talking about Dayton.
Yeah, because they didn't make it. They were
I don't think it was Dayton, but Dayton was another one that was on the bubble and had a legit reason to get in. I think they beat Virginia Tech and Kansas. I mean, those are big wins. They won 23 games. Yeah, Dayton. They're that's not who I was thinking, but they're another team that most likely should have had a spot saved for them.
Yeah, there was quite a few bracket busters. Virginia Tech winning the ACC was one of them. Virginia Tech was not making the tournament, but now they're going in as an 11 seed, which would show you winning the ACC and being an 11 seed. Now, if they didn't win it, they weren't in.
But I think they would have. I think the committee would have looked at them favorably because they won like 12 out of their last 14 games coming in. I know they were rough early in the season. I think they were like 2-9 in the conference or something at one point, and then went on a run. I think for them, I think getting to the conference finals was going to be enough. Even if they'd have lost to Duke on Saturday night, I still think they may have punched their ticket just by getting that far through the tournament. I could be wrong. We won't know because, like you said, they took an automatic bid by winning that. But another team was. It's unfortunate they tripped up. But Xavier was 18-13. That's not a very impressive record. But they beat UConn, Ohio State, Creighton, Virginia Tech, Marquette. So they had some good wins on their resume. Just I don't know how you can reward they were 8-11 in their conference. I mean, you just can't reward that. But I'm not sure what happened with that team. I never saw them play this year, but you'd think a team that's good enough to have some of those wins would be better than 500 in the conference. But I don't know. Did you guys pick a Final Four yet? Did you go through your brackets and do any of that?
No, we have not yet.
Not yet. He hasn't. I've got my brackets here. I've got two different brackets, but it's still so far up in the air. I can tell you right now, just off rip. What I'll do, I'm gonna save it for a little bit because I want Eddy Cool to throw in a little bit of what he thinks as the what were we talking about again? I don't forgot what we talking about.
Who got left out?
who got left out or got
Eddy
in?
Eddy Cool almost got left out of the conversation of who got left out. So Eddy Cool, talk to us.
Good, good. Who'd you feel?
I feel Dayton got left out. Reason being because Richmond won. That's right, because Richmond won, and Dayton, they finished like 23-10, and they were 14-14 in conference play. And so, had Davidson won, it'd be like, hey, the Flyers would be going dancing, but nope. Richmond said, nah, we so
Richmond took their spot. Is that how that went down?
Yep. Yeah. Richmond took their spot. And just think about it. If I'm the Dayton fans, I'm feeling some kind of way because 2020 they had a chance to get like a number one seed, and then that thing called Rona Mania ran wild and just screwed everything up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they really would have had a chance to make a deep run to playoffs, Obi Toppin and crew, and they really would have had a chance to get it done. So I think if anything, Dayton, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, as you stated, Scottie D, they had a credible case too. But I just think Dayton, Dayton back from having Richmond taking their spot, and then what happened in 2020. So I really feel bad for them. Really feel bad for them. All right, fellas, the next question. What did you have to say, B-Live?
I was going to say that according to the NIT, which usually pans out as the top 4 teams that didn't make it to the big dance, the number 1 seeds in the NIT bracket are Dayton, Oklahoma, SMU, and Texas A&M.
Okay.
So that usually irons out the first 4 out.
I think SMU is who I was thinking of before,
okay.
and that was who I had on my mind there. Yeah, SMU, and I guess BYU is going to be one of the higher seeds in that NIT as well.
All right. So with that being said, fellas, who is overrated? Who should have got in at all? Who you think?
Well, I won't necessarily say they shouldn't have got in, but for them to be as high as they're ranked, I think if the committee was going to rank them this high, they put them against the best opponent because they I already picked this as an upset already. Texas at number 6.
I have that upset too, actually.
Texas at number 6. Texas has done nothing but lose. Their last 12 games, Texas has gone 5-7. They lost their first game in the Big 12 tournament. They lost their the last 2 games in the regular season. They lost. They were 5-4 in February, and they make it as a 6 seed. For what? And the most beautiful thing about it, on the flip side of that coin, they're going against the number 11 Virginia Tech that just beat Duke and North Carolina.
Hottest team going right now.
Yeah, I think they won't beat Texas. Texas at number 6. Yeah, they got both of those seedings wrong. I wouldn't be mad if you flipped them 2 and put Virginia Tech at number 6. I think they're playing on that kind of level. The only thing I say about Virginia Tech, please don't let it be left all on the ACC tournament field at the Barclays Center, because you could tell all the emotion and everything for them to win and get in the ACC tournament and to beat Duke and Coach K and all that energy. It's almost a letdown to go to Milwaukee and play Texas. This is New York City and all the lights, Big Apple, and now to go to Milwaukee to play Texas. But if they keep that momentum that they're on, Woo, Texas is in trouble.
Yeah, big time trouble.
They are my overrated team. Scottie D, what you got? Yes, sir.
I'm not going overrated as much as underrated. I think the way Tennessee finished, I thought they'd do better than the 3 seed. I thought they'd be a 2, just because they, like I said, the SEC looked to me like the deepest conference, and they pretty much handled Kentucky pretty soundly on Sunday afternoon. So I thought based on that might move them up. I think a lot of this, because you go from the last conference game, which is the Big Ten, last conference championship, to an hour later of the selection show. I think a lot of this stuff is done already. And the committee already says, it's really not going to matter if Tennessee beats Kentucky or not. Here's where we're putting them, win or lose. So, I think maybe us as fans look a little bit too much into some of this stuff, because I think the committee, they know they got to get this done. They're not going to start debating on who's playing where. They have their 1 lines, their 2 lines, or 3 lines, how they kind of have things already set up. And Kentucky, to me, looked terrible in that game. They couldn't shoot. They were like 2 of 20 something from 3-point range, and it kept going. And their big star player, who's probably going to be the number 1 pick next year, fouled out with like 5 minutes to go in the game. And Tennessee look strong, man. They can shoot, and they got size. They looked really good to me. So I guess I would, based on, I watched a lot of games this past week and weekend, more so than I did obviously earlier in the season. And to me, Tennessee looked really good. Virginia Tech looked really good. Kentucky didn't look so good to me. And the last 2 times I watched Duke, they didn't look too darn good, losing to North Carolina in the last game for Coach K. And then it just looked like Virginia Tech wanted that game more than they did on Saturday night when I watched that game. They got out-quicked to like every loose ball and stuff. So maybe Duke is, I consider, overrated. Maybe I'd go with them being a 2 rather than Tennessee being a 2. Because you got to figure Duke is riding the emotion. We are winning this for Coach K, and they lost their last home game, and they lost the last opportunity to win him an ACC championship. Both cases, the other team just looked like they wanted it more. So obviously Duke is one of the top teams in the country, but I watched the game earlier in the season. They lost, and I watched 2 this past week. They lost. So I watched them lose 3 times. I watched Gonzaga play a couple times. They lost. One of the games I watched them lose, and they looked terrible. I think that was against St. Mary's, I want to say. And so these top teams, I seem like I'm catching them on bad nights. So yeah, maybe I ain't the guy to ask, because I didn't watch 1,000 college basketball games this season. The ones I watched, the really good teams didn't play well. Eddie, cool?
B-Live, I agree with you. Texas, like, what are you doing? Huh? What happened? Like, what in the hell are you doing? But with this matchup here in the East, in the lower half of the bracket, Texas and Virginia Tech, as you mentioned, Virginia Tech, they did wipe the floor with Duke to win the ACC championship. So I'm looking at some predictions here, and it has Texas over Virginia Tech, and we'll see. We'll see, because I'm just not feeling Texas. And Scottie D, you echo the sentiments of a lot of people. The bone of contention with Tennessee is that they should have been ranked higher than 2. Like they're a 3 seed. They should have been a 2 seed. Yeah, they should have been a 2 seed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're 3. Yeah, they're a 3 seed, and they should have been ranked 2. As you said, they wiped the floor of Kentucky too. So, and like you said, Scottie D, a lot of this is already predetermined throughout the day. They're just waiting for everything else to get over with, and here we go. So B-Live already has our bracket challenge set up. So if you need more information on that, B-Live will toss me the link, and I'll put it in the description box for the 3rd year in a row. Sports Bros Podcast. Check us out.
And as your reigning, defending, undisputed Sports Bros Madness champion, I welcome any and all challengers. My bracket's already done. I've been doing this research, son. I'm telling you, I've already got my Cinderella teams in place. I got my double-digit winners in place. I already got Notre Dame going to the Sweet 16 as a play-in team. That's how I do things. Hey, wow. You could go that route as well. I don't know.
UCLA did it last year.
Yes, they did. So I mean, anything can happen. I think Notre Dame at 11th seed. I mean, just because they played in the ACC doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad team. It just maybe the quality of wins just might not be there. Just saying.
They beat Pitt, so I mean they're looking pretty solid.
Nobody cares. All right,
PITT. Let's go Pitt.
You know something? I'm gonna go ahead and say this right now because we've been doing this for about 3 years now, and until Pitt beat Clemson in football, we have not heard this much out of Pitt. I have not heard so much contention, so much like you've been.
I am mocking Pitt, to be honest with you, because they were going to the tournament every year for years and losing in the first or second round. And it came time to say goodbye to Jamie Dixon. So he went to TCU, where he now goes to the first or second round and loses every year. But Pitt now doesn't even get anywhere close to the tournament because they brought in this Stallings, who was terrible, and he ran the program into the ground. It'd take him long to do it. And now we got the old Duke guy down there. What's my boy's name? Yeah, him. And it's not. The rebuild's not happening. Capel.
Oh, Capel, yeah. The guy we saw at the football game, yeah. Jeff.
We saw him there, yeah.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been watching football. He should have been out recruiting.
Oh, yeah. What do you say? What do you say, Scottie D? He should have been what?
He should have been out recruiting instead of watching football with us.
Yeah.
He was at the football game with us.
Yeah, he was literally there in staring distance.
He got a big head too, by the way.
All right, moving right along. Speaking of big things, we got movements in the National Football League. There's been a lot going on. We got
be a sports bro.
Oh man, look here. We got Aaron Rodgers. He's staying with Green Bay. Russell Wilson gets traded to the Denver Broncos. Carson Wentz goes to the Commanders, and Deshaun Watson either looking at Carolina or New Orleans. Fellas, which moves are beneficial to what teams? Scottie D, what say you?
Well, let's just talk about the elephant in the room here and what happened on Sunday night, which stole the thunder of March Madness. And that is, go ahead, say the list of names there, Eddie Cool. The return of
Tom, Edward, Patrick, Carol, Carmichael, Francois, Jabot, Order of Canada, Nottingham, Brady the third. I'm gonna do the dump button. The motherfucker came back. I was just at work like, oh yeah, we got a chance to win the NFC South this year. The Falcons look like crap. The Saints are in a full rebuild mode, and Tom Brady not coming back. 3 hours later, Tom Brady comes back. If I was work, I probably would have cussed for real.
In the middle of bracketology, in the middle of them announcing
stole the thunder.
Completely. I was like, you have got to be. Oh my God! You know what? I'm gonna say this. You don't need the dump button for me because I'm gonna make this nice and clean. But Giselle, what are you doing? What is going on at home that you can't keep your man at home? He is better off in a sweaty locker room with 52 other dudes.
Musty, stinking, funky dudes at that.
Putting his hands between another dude's legs for 40, 50, 60, 70 plays, as opposed to staying home with one of the most finest, richest women in the world. Giselle, what is it about you that he doesn't want to stay home to?
Here's how I think this went down. Here's how I think this went down. I think as the season was winding down, she's like, Tom, you need to come home. This is getting out of hand. This is enough. You're getting hurt. You're going to get hurt. You're going to hurt yourself real bad. The kids don't want to see that. You've won enough. You've done enough. I think you need to come home. He's like, all right, I think I'm going to retire, guys. And then he moped around the house for 40 days. And she finally said, okay, you really want to go play? Go ahead. And he's like, yes, let me text Bruce. And now he's back. I think it went something a little bit like that. But here's the thing that I had the biggest problem with. In his tweet, he said, we have unfinished business. If there is anybody that ever played that has unfinished business, it ain't him. He's finished it 7 times. He got 7 rings. He's been to 10 Super Bowls with that team just a year ago. He doesn't have unfinished business. Yeah, he doesn't have unfinished business. He's in bonus time now. Yeah. Who's we? Here's what I fear is going to happen. Safe to say, he probably will be thinking retirement again this time next year. because he's actually going to play out, I believe, the last year on his contract, right? Isn't that he didn't have to get a new contract or anything. He has 1 year left, I believe, and I think he's just coming back to just to play on that contract. But what if he scrambles out of the pocket and tears his Achilles in week 2? He's going to have a whole season where he's going to go, man, I have some unfinished business. I didn't get to. And you're at that age range where you can tear an Achilles. I mean, Odell Beckham tore his knee up and didn't get touched in the Super Bowl. Those kind of injuries happen. Brady has been very fortunate. He had that one knee injury like 12 years ago. But that's really the most that he's been injured throughout his career. He's been relatively healthy. They've protected him well. But a freak injury happens from time to time. Then a year from now, he's going to say, you know what? I have some unfinished business. Then the year after that, he tears up his elbow. And he comes back. I mean, this could go on to his mid-60s where he has unfinished business every year. He doesn't have unfinished business. He just loves playing football. And you can't fault him for that. If he can still do it, more power to him. Come on back, Tom Brady. You're still, by coming back, you're now one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league still. So anyway.
I mean, just like I told somebody, I said, I knew this was going to happen because how in the hell do you throw for 5,000 yards and lead the lead and damn touchdowns and be like, you know what? I'm not, I'm going to retire.
That's true.
Like, you're at the top of your game. Like, I can understand people like John Elway. I ain't got much more left to give. They're going to spin me around like a helicopter, Petey Pablo style.
Yeah, or Manning or Roethlisberger, same thing. Those guys, they had to drag him off the field, Eddie.
Yeah, they had to drag him off the field. And so, like, you know, I mean, look at Jerome Bettis, you know, from a non-quarterback standpoint. He's like, you know what? I won my ring. I'm done. I mean, Tom Brady, he ain't got nothing left to prove. But the thing about it is to be 44 years old and to throw for 5,000 yards. Who does that? Who does that? What was the old quarterback? Was it Jim Plunkett? Was it Jim Plunkett, Stabler? George Blanda.
Blanda. He was like 100 when he retired.
He was like 675 when he retired. I don't know if he's going. I don't know what the record is. Maybe he's going. The only record I got left is George Blanda's record, fellas. But while we got a little bit of time left, so we can agree that, you know, Aaron Rodgers stayed in Green Bay, no big deal, right? We knew that was coming.
I once I know the number of the contract, because there's speculation that it's 4 years, $200 million. But I
don't think they released all the details of his deal.
Aaron Rodgers said it. No, hold on. Aaron Rodgers said, nope, that ain't it. I don't know who said that, but that's not. Yeah, that's not going on. So Aaron Rodgers coming back, big freaking whoop. I don't really care, because he's probably going to flop again in the playoffs, and he most likely will be without Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams said, "Hey, you're not going to keep me 1 year for that little bit for $20 million. I need a long-term contract, and if you're paying Aaron Rodgers this much, that's why I'm curious about the number. The thing that intrigues me the most, not even gonna lie to you, isn't even the Deshaun Watson talks where he's talking the Panthers or the Saints, which is going to be very, very, very interesting. Panthers, I want a quarterback. We can work on the other things later if we have a chance to get Deshaun Watson. All the detractors can kiss my natural, you know what. But I won't divulge into that too long. The one thing that got me going nuts right now is the AFC West.
So Wilson.
These are the quarterbacks in the AFC West now. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, and Russell Wilson. That could easily be the best 4 quarterbacks at one given point in time in one division that we've ever seen. That is going to be such a competitive division. And any one of those 4 teams. Kansas City is not the same Kansas City they used to be. I mean, they did their damage. They got to where they got to. But, I mean, I think with the Chargers signing Mike Williams, I think they're going to be stronger. I think Russell Wilson coming to Denver immediately makes them better. And Las Vegas with Derek Carr. Derek Carr is not a pushover. Derek Carr is not a pushover at all.
No, they made the playoffs. They made the
Right.
playoffs, Esther.
And so, I mean, and they made the playoffs despite of everything.
Right.
Think if they had a full season together without all the outside noise. Oh, they could easily be in the picture. It's gonna be a dog fight. So, man, oh man, Russ. And the thing about it is, Denver gave up everything. Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, 2022 first round pick, 2022 second round pick, 2022 fifth round pick, 2023 first round pick, and 2023 second round pick. They gave away a partridge and a pear tree, the kitchen sink, and all of the things. So,
how disappointed are you going to be if you don't get Deshaun Watson?
I'm gonna be. Here's the thing. It's 50-50 for me because I don't want to give up everything for Deshaun Watson. I don't want to gut the team. So I don't want to get rid of like 3 players and 3 draft picks or 4 draft picks.
Yeah.
I'll be all right with a couple first rounders, couple second round draft picks, and 1 player. Like
I think it's going to take more than 4 picks. I think it's going to be they're going to want more than that.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
with what the freaking Broncos just gave Russell Wilson, yeah, it will.
Yeah.
So, and
it's going to be dangerous because this guy could still be facing suspensions. Just because he wasn't charged doesn't mean that this stuff is over with yet.
Yeah.
Especially from the league perspective, because you and I were going at it on our little phones the other day about how Roger Goodell treated Ben Roethlisberger and Ezekiel Elliott. And to me, that was the biggest travesty because Ezekiel Elliott never got charged. He was accused of something before he was in the NFL, and Goodell took 6 games off of him in his second year. And that ain't right. That wasn't right. But if he's going to do it there, you got to be consistent. Deshaun Watson should probably get suspended like 120 games or something like that.
That's not. First of all,
oh God, not 120 games. Wait a minute.
I'm gonna say this because I did my research. When it came to Zeke Elliott, there was some condemning evidence, but the reason why he couldn't be charged criminally is because the what's the thing called, the chain of
command.
Statute
of limitations.
The chain of custody or something like that. When it comes to evidence, it was presented incorrectly. So the evidence was inadmissible in court, but it was still there. There were photographs of the alleged such and such or whatever. And so the league was like, yeah, you might have done that. What evidence is there with Deshaun Watson besides the number
22 girls saying that they had to touch his penis,
and none of them can get their story straight. None of them can get their story straight. It's just hearsay. I'm waiting on the evidence. Once that is presented, and if Deshaun Watson is suspended, it is what it is. I don't think it's dangerous because I think at the end of the day, it's just something that you get through and you move forward. 6 games, he'll come back and take a team to the playoffs. Season after that, take him to the Super Bowl. He is that caliber of a quarterback. So, Deshaun Watson, I welcome you to Carolina. I welcome you to the Panthers. Hey, you already know how I feel. I bleed orange. Where's all my stuff at? Where's my koozie? Where I got all my orange stuff right here. You know how I feel about Deshaun Watson. I bleed orange. I will welcome you to Carolina all day, any day of the week. Here's another mask for you with Clemson on it. I know we're running out of time, but I got to make it known that you're welcome to me in Carolina. Yes, sir. Please. Yes.
All right, real quick before we bring on our special guest, Hunter Simboli, with the baseball report. That's right, Hunter Simboli is back. Carson Wentz to the Commanders. What the hell is going on?
Nobody cares.
Overpaid for him.
They did too much.
Did way too much.
Yeah, they did. They did too much. And we can agree on that. Well, just let everyone know that the new league year starts on the 16th, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Right now is the legal tampering process where they can talk amongst each other. And Joey Buckets, I apologize about talking about that. Nobody cares about the Commanders. We care about the Commanders. It should have stuck with a Washington football team. Sounds better. But Commanders, it is what it is. Joey Buckets,
Mitchell Trubisky is Steeler. How about that?
And
Mitchell Trubisky is Steeler.
I'm not mad at that at all. He's not a
all.
bad quarterback. He was just in a bad system in Chicago.
Yeah.
He's not a bad quarterback. Hey,
Yeah,
more power to you. Hey, let's get it. Another chance. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers going to surprise you.
They just might. Yeah,
they would.
They got to figure something out, man. They got to fix the offensive line because Najee Harris got a struggle 1,000-yard rushing, and we'll see about that in the NFL in the future. All right, we got the free agency period and everything coming up with the NFL and the new league year coming up as well, too. Coming up next, it's time to talk some baseball with our special guest, Hunter Simboli, right after this. All right, baseball is back. Yes, everybody agreed. The millionaires and the billionaires said, yes, we going to play. Let's have some fun. We done lost a couple games, a couple weeks, so let's recoup that money because we can't afford another 2020 season. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce our Buster Olney, our Peter Gammons, our Tim Kirchin, but his voice is way more deeper than Timmy Kirchin's. I promise you that. Our Jeff Bassan, welcoming back for the third time, introducing once again to the world, Hunter Simboli. Welcome back to the show, Hunter. Welcome back to the show. He is our baseball guy here at the Sports Bros podcast. And how you been, man? Long time to hear from. How you been?
I'm better now. I'll tell you that much. The last 99 days have been not the best, but we're here.
Yeah.
Hunter, did it make you crazy that they spent 46 days from Christmas until they went back to the bargaining table without even talking? Did that not make you nuts? Because it made me crazy.
Yeah, that was actually my first talking point was, when you're in negotiations, you would think that they would start immediately, December 2nd, because December 1st is when they start. December 2nd, you think they would go in head first, trying to find something. And then Player Association gives them a deal, and then the owners are like, we'll wait. 40 days is probably a good time to think about it. I think that's a good amount of time. And then I feel like this would have all been avoided. I mean, great. Well, let's say that, baseball is back. We're not going to take that for granted. But, some of this worrying and some of this stress probably could have been avoided, instead of canceling spring training games.
I don't know, Hunter. I think they were going to play hardball till the very end, till desperation mode anyway. But I think, to your point, like I was actually alluding to before on our show, they waited too long. They could have crossed some bridges earlier. And yeah, I think they could have gotten this done earlier too, but
they knew it. The owners knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah,
they knew exactly what they were doing, and the reason why the deal got done when it got done is it put the players in a position where they knew they were going to lose money because games not being played, they're going to lose money. The owners, again, most of them are billionaires. They're going to be all right without a few
smart businessmen.
And so it ended up being the biggest bargaining tools because at the end of the day, and I was going to ask that question, the players really didn't gain much out of it. Like there was a couple concessions that the owners did eventually agree to, but for the most part, the status quo of all of the revenue that's coming in, the billions of revenue, didn't get split evenly with the players. The owners still got to pocket it. But my big question to you, Hunter, out of all of this, what's the best thing that did happen for the players in your thought process?
Well, I kind of think that this can go two different ways. In my opinion, I think the main structure of the deal and why it was as long of a negotiation process as it was, and to put it cut and simple, the owners did not want to prepare the younger players for a more fruitful living in the minors.
Wow.
Now, with that's basically what I'm getting out of the deal. And the reason why it took so long is because a lot of it was based on the CBT, the pre-arb pool, and the minimum salary cap. And with that, the minimum salary they ended up agreeing on was it increases by $20K every season from 2022 to 2026. It jumps from 700 to 760. Doesn't sound like a lot. It sounds like pennies. But this is every single player that's in the majors that's getting paid that, right? And then before the negotiations even started, the players, by the end of 2026, they wanted the CBT to get to 268. The owners we're at 232.
That's a competitive balance tax. That what you're
correct.
Okay.
It works kind of as a, in a sense, a salary cap. There's a couple things that kind of differ from it, but it's pretty much what it is. And then you have the player arbitration pool where the players were over at 110, I think, when negotiations started. The owners were at 10 million. So if the best thing that I think that came out of it is the players fought for the younger players and the younger generation that are in the minors to give them a more fruitful starting point, to give them better opportunity to make more money. Because instead of, in a sense, really giving all that money to the top 0.5% of the league, the Mike Trouts, the Tatises, a bunch of other players that I can't even think about. Those guys that are making Max Scherzer's, the ones that are making millions and millions of dollars on one at bat, on one pitch. That's what I think is the main structure of the deal, and that's why I think it took so long a negotiation period. But one, because they were also so far apart from the very beginning.
Correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't one of the sticking points too, like as far as service time, and I don't know how this got alleviated, because I can remember a few years back when the Pirates had this Gregory Polanco down in the minors. We couldn't wait to see him. They held him in the minors, even though he was, what they were saying was ready, until like middle of May or something like that, so that his first year wouldn't be that year. It would be the following year. He didn't get a full year of service time. That way they had club control over him later on in his career. Did that get kind of rectified? I mean, how did that work? Or are you even sure how that was working?
I know a couple different things. So everything you just said was correct. That's what we call it, service time manipulation, which they did that in order to keep him in control with the minimum amount of money being made for a longer period of time. And if you recall, a lot of the franchises that take advantage of this particular loophole, we'll call it, are the teams that are in the lower market. Pirates, Guardians, Detroit, I would say, but now they're kind of getting it up there. Those Tampa Bay, they're very notorious for doing that, especially with their pitching. Though one of the things that they had in the deal kind of avoided this, to where if they are in the top whatever percent of the minors, like I think it was the top 2 rule, where if they're in the top 2, they automatically get that year of service time. So
I saw something about okay.
So for example, like a Spencer Torkelson from Detroit, if he was in the top 2, he would immediately get a year of service time. That's how I understand it. And keep in mind, I'm a common fan who loves analytics, but by no means am I in the business side of anything. But that's how I, as a common fan, as a analytic standpoint and statistics standpoint, took it. And there's a lot of different variables in this deal that are crazy that'll affect the game for until a new agreement is made, such as the DH and the NL. That's what most people are excited about, because it changes. Nelson Cruz, for example, he wouldn't have went to the Nationals, obviously, if there wasn't a DH. He would have stuck in the American League. The draft lottery avoids teams from tanking, like the Pirates, for example.
But I don't think that is going to be as big a deal as people are making it out to be, because if you're the Pirates and you're wanting to stock up for the future, you're going to do that anyway, whether you're getting in the lottery, getting the number 1 overall pick or the number 6 pick, because in baseball, it's as far as a sure thing in the draft as in any sport. I mean, you see LeBron James coming out, that's the guy who's going to be number 1 pick. And in the NFL, you see Trevor Lawrence is coming, that's going to be the number 1 guy. Pirates had the number 1 pick a couple years ago, and they didn't. 3 days before the draft, we can't tell who the best player in college baseball is. It's such a more of a crapshoot, I think, when it comes to drafting college baseball players than it is in other sports.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's already unpredictable in terms of, who are you predicting is going to have longevity in the league. It's very unpredictable in the majors because there is a lot more development. After college, for the football, for example, you're drafted, you're either honed to start or you're starting. It's one of those. With the minors,
right,
you still you can have up to 3-4 years of development before you're
exactly. It's years before you make an impact on the team. Correct. Yeah.
Let me ask something about the draft that I still haven't quite understood. Like, didn't people like Russell Wilson, didn't he get drafted in baseball? He's not the only one. Wasn't Kyler Murray also somebody that got drafted baseball wise?
Mm-hmm.
to be drafted and then not even play in the sport? Like, how does that even work with baseball as opposed to other sports? Like, yeah, it's almost unheard of in other sports, but baseball, you get drafted before you even graduate high school sometimes, and then you play how does that even work? Help me out with that.
To tell you the truth, the situation is so rare to where it's almost hard to like pinpoint how it exactly works. I know with baseball and football, how they're kind of on the polar opposites of the seasons. From the end of the baseball season, football is just now gearing up. But Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, those guys are kind of the anomalies of athletics. And if you want another guy, for example, that was drafted to a baseball team, Tom Brady, he was drafted to the Montreal Expos way back as a catcher, I believe. I don't know if you guys know that. That was one of the crazy ones. There's a lot of younger guys that were doing that, but I got to be honest. In terms of someone who is a baseball guy, I'm just as confused as you are in that. I don't know how.
It's very confusing.
The amount of energy
so wait a
takes
minute.
to be
So wait a minute. That explains that Tom Brady card with the Montreal Expos catcher's gear on. Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But I don't think. But and maybe you know more about this than I do, Hunter. But I don't know that like you can. I don't think you keep the rights with a drafted baseball player that doesn't sign. Like I think these guys will like. I don't know that Kyler Murray would still be property of the A's at this point because he didn't sign with them. I think somebody else could draft him again next year, if I'm not mistaken. Because there have been situations like that before where I know someone got drafted and they went back in and got redrafted again in the future draft. I think that might even happen to Garrett Cole, to be honest with you. I think he was drafted and didn't sign with anybody and played another year of college baseball or something to that effect. Again, I'm not 100% clear on that, but I do think that whereas like in the NFL, you know, you draft like the Raiders drafted Bo Jackson. He went and played for the Royals, and then when he decided to play football, they kept his draft right, so he had to go play for them. I don't know that that's the same in baseball.
I think it's more of like the commitment standpoint, because I know there's a lot of players in the MLB draft that will get drafted, and then they'll decide, you know what, I'm going to go to school to play another year,
right.
Whether it's because they get drafted in the 33rd round or whatever, however many rounds they are at. The MLB draft is one of my lower strong suits, just because I know when they get drafted, I'm not going to see them for another 6 years.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not as exciting as some of the other drafts where you see the instant impact for sure.
No, but that tells you how tough of a sport baseball is, if anything. That should prove it, that these guys are on a different level than even some people in college. Crazy.
Well, let me ask you this. What rule change did you find favor with? Because I know there were a couple of them. I know they wiped out the rule, the extra inning rule, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's off the table again, where you put a runner on second base. I think that's gone. That was they did that for 2 years coming out of COVID, and I think that's gone. Right? Wasn't that one of the rules that? Yeah,
it was that, and then the other big one was the, if I recall, the 7-inning game rule, where if it's a doubleheader, they're still going to play 2 nines.
They're playing the full. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. I think. But my favorite one, in my opinion, is that DH in the NL. If I had to pick another one, it would probably be the expanded playoffs to 12 teams. I know from offhand it sounds weird, but from a business standpoint and from a entertainment standpoint, it's one of the better moves, because you can have a team who may have finished with like a 515 win percentage go to the World Series, and I think it just makes more of an interesting story as it goes.
And there was a 14-game proposal on the table, right?
Yep.
See, I think that's too many. I think I like the 12 better. I like the 12 better. Honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the owners wanted that because, why wouldn't they want that? But the players were like, we'll give that to you if a certain, demand, I don't remember what demand it was, but if a certain demand was reached. Same with the bigger bases, bigger bases.
That's for player safety, right? Isn't that why they were doing that, for like the second base collision rule kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely for that. And kind of like the, when you touch second, and a lot of times they can't throw to first because they're in the base path. I think it was another way to kind of like, in a sense, this is my theory, just to catapult you off the base and kind of have more room. That's kind of my thing with it. I know it's for safety for sure, and mainly the sliding, but they're, the MLB, they're so unpredictable a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Now, correct me I'm sorry if I'm jumping on you, but I had one other thing I wanted to, the positioning, the shift, they're doing away with that, I think, next year, right? The 2023 season. Is that, do you know if that's official? Because that's one that I'm struggling with. I think that's going to happen, where they're going to not be allowed to make to shift. And I don't know how they're going to line that up and make them not do that. Maybe only 2 players allowed on one side of second base. So I'm not sure, but it seems strange to me that, like, if you're going to run on 3rd and 1, you're going to stack all your guys on the line. You're playing defense according to what the other team's going to do. And baseball has been smartly doing that.
Yep.
And instead of training the batters to bunt or hit the ball the other way, we're just going to say, nope, you can't, you're altering the defense. And
Yep.
What do you think of that? Because I have a little bit of a problem with that.
I am highly against that 100%. I think it takes away a lot of the strategy in the game. It would be like, for example, if they took away bunting. And obviously that hopefully would never happen, because, again, that eliminates a factor in the game, one, that's not really used a whole lot anymore just from a strategic standpoint. And 2, I think it eliminates managerial decisions on defense.
That's true. Very true.
Now, in terms of if that's going to happen this year, what I will say is I know that the MLBPA granted the owners permission to have an assortment of rule changes in the next 45 days. That's what I understand from reading now.
Oh, okay.
In terms of the shift, I have not heard a whole lot about that being something that's going to be implemented for the 2022 season. I have heard more about the 2023 season now. So,
yeah.
But as soon as something like that happens, I am going to be extremely upset, because the first guy that I think of when I think of shifts is I think of Joey Gallo, and he is going to be incredibly happy when his batting average boosts 60 pins and he thinks that he's getting better.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right, Hunter. Earlier today, a few news and notes broke today. First of all, Fernando Tatis Jr., he's expected to miss 3 months with a fractured wrist. Yes. How does that impact the San Diego Padres?
Oof. Well, I mean, that's a really tough one, because obviously it impacts their team at such a high level. And if I'm being honest, without them or without Tatis, I don't think that they are a playoff team, in my personal opinion. I think that Tatis is a game changer in the box. His fielding, obviously, for whatever reason, has digressed an unnatural amount, which is why he was playing center for a little bit of the 2021 season. But I think losing his bat, I mean, that lineup is pretty good without him, but with him, it's a game changer of a lineup. And I think it's really going to hurt their chances until he comes back in probably late June, early July.
Less good pitches from Machado, I would think.
Yeah, that also affect. Well, I mean, if I were a pitcher, I wouldn't even pitch to Tatis half the time. I mean, he's not Barry Bonds, obviously, but if I had to pick between either facing him or Machado, I think I'd probably face Machado every time. Not to downgrade Machado. Machado's a great player and he's a way better fielder, but all around standpoint, Tatis knows what he's doing in the box.
That's what I mean. But if you got Tatis in the lineup behind him, you want to get Machado out. You don't want to, now you don't have to mess around with him as much. You can pitch around him a little bit more.
Yep. And also earlier today, the Mariners, they're making moves. They traded for Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez. Now, how does that better the outfield for the Mariners?
Well, what I will say is Jesse Winker had a career year last year, and I think the Reds, I'm not 100% sure what they were thinking on the trade by getting. I think the one notable name that I remember off rip is Justin Dunn, and I want to say his ERA last year was in the sub fives. Which, I mean, if they see something, they see something. Obviously I'm not a coach or manager or anything like that. But when you trade somebody who was a staple in your lineup and a guy who is a proven home run hitter in Eugenio Suarez, I don't understand the move. I understand the move for the Mariners. That I think it was a great move. But for the Reds, they weren't that far off in contention last year. And I think this move, I don't think it helps them. I think it helps them in the long, long run if those prospects pan out. But I don't think it helps them right now. And I think it actually hurts them right now at this very moment, because you've taken out two guys who combined for last year, I think like in home runs in the 70s, something like that. And if Eugenio Suarez gets his batting average up to 260, they are really going to regret that trade.
Right. And B Live is mighty quiet, but he does have some concerns about what's going on in Atlanta. What do you have? What question do you have for Hunter, B Live?
Well, I don't know how you could read the sweat on my forehead because I'm literally reading the story about the Braves and their trade, and it's looking more and more prevalent that I'm losing my dude. I'm losing my favorite gift, my man Freddie Freeman dancing, but it looks like that that the Dodgers and the Yankees are pulling out their paychecks, and so Magic Johnson can kiss my you know what, and whoever owns the Yankees, your boys, so
Steinbrenners,
then whatever, they can choke on a big one. So I'll ask you, because I'm a diehard Braves fan. I already have my opinion about the matter. I'm looking at the matter. We're getting younger. We're getting better. We're getting cheaper. So we're not spending as much money. We're not. But he was such a leader in that locker room. So how do you feel? How do you feel about this move from the Braves?
I think it's incredibly confusing. It didn't feel like they fought very hard for Freddie Freeman, which in my mind, I took that as complete disrespect. I mean, they fought more for the tomahawk chop than they fought for Freddie Freeman. On this. Wow. Is what I'm feeling. And I'll tell you one thing, getting Matt Olson, fine and dandy. That's amazing. I actually really like the move in terms of a player standpoint, but when you're trading somebody like Christian Pache for that, I don't think that was a smart move for future reference. I think Freddie Freeman, even though his stats against lefties are a little on the questionable side, I think he is, like you said, B-Live, he's a leader in the locker room, and he was helping players like Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Christian Pache develop incredibly early. And he's been with that organization for as long as I can remember, back when they had Craig Kimbrell, just to kind of put you in perspective. But when Freddie Freeman's face looked like multiple volcanoes in a small crater. But I don't understand. I really don't understand why they wouldn't fight for him more. I really wish I had more to say, but the trade is questionable. I don't know why they wouldn't re-sign a guy like Freddie Freeman. I know he was asking for a lot of money, but you have a guy like Ronald Acuna locked down on a very team-friendly contract. You should at least make more of a push.
How many years was Freeman seeking, though? I mean,
I think 6. 6 to 5, I think, was his range.
And he's what, 34, 33, somewhere in there?
I think he's B-Live. You might know more than me, but I think he was only like 31.
I want to say it's young 30s, probably 31, 32. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up real quick. But yeah, but still, it's one of those things where my heart says, pay the man.
Yeah,
Braves, the Braves obviously can afford it. They're one of the bigger franchises in the world. I mean, we can afford it. Yeah. But that's something about the Braves that I've known about them. The Braves, they're better than the Pirates. I'll say this much. But the Braves really don't pay. They don't pay big money. I have not seen a time where they've had those big money contracts. The biggest contract I've ever seen them is the one that Ronald Acuna has. Well, 5 years, $100 million, or was it 6 years, $100 million, something like that?
I'm pretty sure it was like a longer deal, and they're not paying him a whole lot for what his ability is. They signed him incredibly early, which in result, it obviously helped them a lot. Like, they signed him when they were like not even like, I think, a year and a half in the league, something crazy, which is why they got such a team-friendly contract. Because in reality, they just pulled him from under the rug.
Oh, dear God, it's worse.
Yeah, I know.
Which is better for business, but Jesus Christ.
I don't know if I hate it. I don't know if I hate it as much as you guys do, because Olson's he's younger. He's a good player, man.
Yeah, he's a great player. That's not the argument.
Yeah.
He's a great player.
The value is there, 100%. Yeah. But Freddie Freeman is like the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
That's literally like you as a Yankees fan, you're saying that Derek Jeter is asking for too much money. At any given point in time.
Yankees print their own money and they spend recklessly.
But
You are right about that.
I mean, but maybe the Braves are trying to stay away from that tax threshold. You know, I don't know. It has to be financial. You're not going to let a guy walk away like that after winning a World Series if it's not all financial.
Ronald Acuna signed an 8-year, $100 million contract, which is ridiculously cheap.
Maybe they're following, but B-Live, you know, the Cardinals are a team who were successful year after year. They let their big stars walk without doling out big contracts, and then they just spend smart money in other places, and that's always been the model that's worked for them. So, you know,
the Braves have always gone. Yeah, the Braves have always gone young for as long as I've known them as a team. I think when it comes to free agent signings, I think the biggest free agent signing they've ever had was Greg Maddux. But besides that, majority of the players that they had came up from like the farm leagues, from the minor leagues, stuff like that, and developed young and early. But besides Maddox, Sheffield, I want to say was early on. But for the most part, they don't spend a lot. But you feel like just one time for the one time. Everybody else, like, it's one of those things. We've also been very fortunate. Like a person like Chipper Jones stayed the entire career and never really asked for that big contract. But Freddie Freeman, hey, I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad at Freddie Freeman at all. Hey, if somebody's out there saying we're gonna pay you $30 million, go get it, bro. Mm-hmm. I just
the one thing that I do want to add there is it's different when you're paying for talent versus when you're paying for the face of your team.
Loyalty.
You know? Yeah. And loyalty. Yeah. It would almost be like in this exact instance, and I think this is comparable. Say if Mike Trout didn't sign that contract, say if he signed with somewhere else and the Angels didn't want to cough up that amount of money. I think that he's the face of that team, obviously. And it almost came off as disrespectful if you didn't want to offer what he wanted, because he quite literally changed the direction of your whole entire franchise. That's something that Freddie Freeman did. He was around when the Braves were losing 90, 80 games a year.
Yeah.
You know, and he was the only guy that was notable on that team. You know, and then you have some other people who you wouldn't even remember them now when they were on that team. You know, he's been there for a lot longer than people remember. He's been there for a while.
Yeah, he has been around for a very, very long time. But I'm like you're speaking about Mike Trout. I just want Mike Trout to get one. I just want him to get one World Series ring. I mean, because a guy like him, you know, he's quiet, he's humble, he doesn't make a lot of noise, he's good on the field, he's good off the field. Anaheim, LAA, whatever your name want to be, do something. Get this man some help.
They've tried.
Get him some pitching.
Never works.
Get him some pitching. They need pitching. If they get some sort of pitching, anything, like if they went and signed Carlos Rodon, they went and signed a couple more starting pitchers, they would be on the top of my list on teams that I think are going to win the World Series. They have no pitching, and then when they do have pitching, they get hurt. Their best starter last year was a guy who was hitting most of the time. Their second best was a guy named Dylan Bundy. Granted, was really good at one point. He's still okay now, but if he's your number 2 starter, when the Guardians, for example, Dylan Bundy probably wouldn't make that starting rotation. Just as a clarity point, that tells you something into what they need to improve upon with being the Angels, which is their bullpen and their starting pitching. Their lineup, you don't need to soak up $700 million in that lineup with Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, a couple other guys. You got Justin Upton. If you guys didn't tell, this really frustrates me about the Angels. I'm not a huge fan of them, but if they just were smart in any type of degree with pitching, they would be in the postseason every year.
Yeah. And speaking of the Guardians, Hunter, what is your outlook this year for the Cleveland Guardians?
I'd like them to get a power bat in the outfield. That's what I would like for it to happen. I think they have a lot of people a lot of guys in the minor leagues that are developing strongly. One of my favorites, Oscar Gonzalez. He is gonna hopefully tear that team up when he gets brought up eventually. There's a lot of guys that I think are going to come up this offseason as well. A lot of names. I think Oscar Gonzalez, I'm really really excited for. And then there's a couple other guys. I think Nolan Jones, if he has a good early minor league season, I think he has a chance to come up and play first base or left field if Bobby Bradley or if Josh Naylor isn't ready, for example. I like Josh Naylor, as I was saying. I think he's going to make a big turnaround after that rough injury. I really like the team. I think their starting pitching is really good. I think in terms of the bullpen, there's some question marks there with Karinchak. And if Karinchak can, get his stuff right, if Class A can keep up his 102 mile an hour cutter, there is a lot of questions in that bullpen. I think the lineup has even more questions. However, I think both of those will pan out within time because Terry Francona arguably is the best coach in the majors, and I will stand by that. He's done more with less before, and not to say that they're less. They're good for what it is. They have a lot of young talent. They all just need to develop correctly. And I think they'll be all right.
I'm just gonna have a hard time saying Guardians. I am not used to that at all.
I've developed it as a habit, man. It takes a while. After saying it 40 times a day, it grows.
I still say to this day, I said it today on the episode, I still have the Raiders in Oakland. So there's certain things I said it literally a few minutes ago. I'm like, oh God, I can't get that right. The Raiders. Oh, then you got the Washington Commanders team.
You mean to tell me 3 years and the best you can – I'll say it once and I'll say it again before we move on to the choices of the voices. You let the Canadian football team, formerly known as the Edmonton Eskimos, I swear it took them 90 days to come up with a new nickname, the Edmonton Elks. Only thing they had to do, they kept the colors, was just flip around the logo, and boom, back in business. So they had enough time to postpone the season, come up with a whole new name, play this new season with this past season with a whole new name, and 3 years, here you go. Well, the best we got is Commanders. You serious?
Eddie, cool. I'm going to stop you there, though. I'm going to stop you there because that is in Canada. We live in the United States. You know why they have to go through all these processes and everything? Because you have to put a label on McDonald's coffee telling people that it's hot. You have to tell people on a commercial that if you are allergic to the exact drug that you're about to take, you shouldn't take it. There's reasons why.
We're dumb. We're dumb.
Every drug commercial I watch right now, they literally say, if you're allergic to this particular drug, you do not take this. Why would you have to say that? Because of legal reasons. But I get it, man. But
But guess what? Guess what you're about to get? And guess what time it is?
What time is it? What's going on?
I got some good news. Hunter here, he's going to stick around for the choices of the voices. Our favorite portion of the program. We are back and we're pumped because it's WrestleMania season, brother. And with that being said, hey, yo, Button, hit it.
And now, our favorite part of the show, the choices of the voices.
Once again, thank you to the wonderful and I got to say it again. Once again, thank you to the wonderful and ever so lovely Miss Button for introducing our favorite portion of the show. That's right. It is the choices of the voices. And let me put it on gallery view real quick. And as you can see, the almighty B-Life constructed the logo with the voices. The choices of the voices. Let me see. We got Uncle Max. We got the best name in the game, JoJo Comfort. There's me. Is that Doug Peterson? No. I'm joking. We got Matty Ice. We got everybody over there, man. Everybody, the usual suspects. This is our favorite portion of the show, and we love it. Scott, save me. I'm incoherently rambling. What's the question for this week's choices of the voices?
All right, we went from sports to sports entertainment and asked you, who is your all-time favorite pro wrestling manager? Right? We got WrestleMania season coming up here. WrestleMania is in a few weeks. I don't know what the date of it is, but I know it's soon. And Eddie Cool took a break last week to go watch a little bit of Monday Night Raw. So I figured let's get in the pro wrestling mood. And that's why I came up with that question for the week. So favorite pro wrestling manager, Eddie Cool. What do we get here?
All right, pro wrestling managers. Here we go. All right, we got Rodney Bellamy. He said Jim Cornette. He's a heel. Tennis racket and everything, right? He said he was a sleazeball. Jim Cornette just talked that trash, though. Let's think about it. He said, but his podcast has some of the most insightful hard truths about old school wrestling. Good listen, Good stuff. So we got one.
It is. It is.
Yeah, we got one for James E. Cornett. If you're Kenny Omega, you might not want to listen to the podcast. We got cosplay dancers and Kenny Olivier. He just be going off. It's so hilarious. All right. We got Diamond Dave Ramito. He says 3 great choices. There are their money. Captain Lou Albano, Classy Freddie Blassie, and J.J. Dillon as well. He was a huge Cornette fan himself as well, too. Oh, I like this one, a throwback. Jimmy Hart and, of course, Gary Hart were pretty cool, too. Gary Hart was a old school territorial manager, you know. He said, brother, I'll get at you. How I get at you? I got a man right here. He'll come and get you, brother. Yeah, good old Gary Hart. And you know, the Mouth of the South megaphone running up and down and stuff. And I don't know if you noticed, but Jimmy Hart is an accomplished musician. Yeah.
He's a music producer and all. Yeah.
So
he used to play a lot of those entrance themes from the old WCW days. He's the one that recorded those.
And you can tell too.
Yeah, they don't sound good in modern music, but they didn't age very well.
Man, what the hell? I'm like, you know what? I think he was the culprit behind American Males. I don't know if you remember the American Males theme song. Good. All right. Moving right along. It's just anyway.
Might be too young for that one.
You might be.
I'm too young. I'm too young for that.
I guess I'm just.
we the same age, but I will say this: Eddy Cool is definitely way more of an accomplished wrestling fan than I am, without question. He the amount of stuff he knows, I pale in comparison. So I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, I'm just gonna let him do his thing. I'm gonna sneak in a little nugget of information. But yeah, I was also sheltered as a child. I loved my parents to death, but didn't watch too much wrestling until I became an adult. So the 80s and 90s, they've eluded me. Don't ask me about much of anything because I just don't know. I didn't see it.
All right. So moving right along, we got Joey Buckets, Joe Gafkin. He said, Miss Elizabeth, bless her heart for putting up with the Macho Man Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, Miss Elizabeth. All right. Then we got the Hall of Famer himself, Uncle Max. He gave me a long answer, but it's worth a read. All right. He said, I always loved Captain Lou Albano. He managed a lot of greats such as George, the Animal Steel, the British Bulldogs, and even Andre the Giant. He was very charismatic and never shied away from interfering in a match. I remember watching MTV and seeing him in Cyndi Lauper videos as well, too. I think he paved the way for future managers to make the impacts in the wrestling world because he was so good in front of the microphone. He always made me laugh. He had rubber bands in his face. Who got a rubber band picture in their face, man? Like, really? He said, I also loved when Alice Cooper was in Jake the Snake's corner as well, too. Those two were made for each other. He had to be the skinniest, scrawniest guy to ever hit another wrestler. That was entertainment. Yeah, Uncle Max is referring to the rock and wrestling era.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good era. All right, moving right along. We got a new one. No, he's been here before. Matthew Neff, he says, Precious Paul Ellering is greatly underrated. The stable Legion of Doom with Bundy, Jake the Snake, and the Road Warriors was a stable. Yeah, that was a whole stable there too.
Back in the NWA days.
Yep, the territory days. All right, then we got JoJo Comfort, the best name in the game. He says there are so many to choose from. Where I sit, let's see. He said J.J. Dillon, Skandar Akbar from the Texas days. All right.
Wow.
Good old General Skandar Akbar. Classy Freddie Blassie, Paul Ellering comes to mind. That said, I got to give it up to Classy Freddie Blassie. The combination of his promos and the term pencil neck geek seal the win. So that was
money. That was money.
So that's two we got for Classy Freddie Blassie. And then JR, he put us a GIF and he says the legendary Mr. Fuji.
All right.
Yep. Did I miss anybody, fellas? Because I got a tendency to miss people.
I think you got them all on this week. Yeah, looking good.
Perfect. I got everybody. So shout out to Hot Rod, Rodney Bellamy, Diamond Dave Ramito, Joey Buckets, Joe Gafkin, the Hall of Famer himself, Uncle Max, Matthew Neff, the best name in the game, JoJo Comfort, and Smooth, the Star Walker himself, JR Speaks, for their participation in this week's Choices of the Voices. And with that being said, Hunter, who is your favorite wrestling manager of all time?
Well, I'm hoping I can impress y'all, or me and you, Eddie, just a little bit. Okay. Well, because I've been a huge wrestling fan for quite a bit, kind of fallen off recently, but I was kind of debating on two. So I had either Jimmy Hart, or the one that I am going to end up going with being Paul Heyman. Now, I'm going to tell you why for Paul Heyman. So Paul Heyman, the three guys that I think of when I think of Paul Heyman are obviously, Roman Reigns, not the first one, but currently right now, Brock Lesnar, of course, the most affiliation. And if you recall, I'm going to do a little bit of suspense here before I reveal who the third one is. Survivor Series 2002. During Brock Lesnar's debut before Survivor Series 2002, when he absolutely almost murdered Spike Dudley, Paul Heyman was there, elevated his career. And in Survivor Series 2002, he turns on him for the Big Show, which in turn propels Brock Lesnar into the biggest babyface that you will ever see in that era, which I think is what set him up for WrestleMania 19 to face Kurt Angle. I think that really propelled him. And I think for what Paul Heyman does to people's careers as well, another one being CM Punk, Ryback, so many different wrestlers with all kind of different ideas that he had. RVD didn't quite manage him, but he was labeled connection. A Paul Heyman guy. Yeah. Labeled as that. And I think when Paul Heyman, identifies somebody as I like you, you should be going places. We're not going to count Curtis Axel, but other than that, I mean,
that's the only one that didn't work really.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, I think Paul Heyman is top of the crop. He is.
I'd like to see him work with Ronda Rousey because she could use somebody to help her on the microphone. She's better off playing the badass heel, and I think he would help her. I think that would be money. But he seems like he does one at a time. You don't really see him doing a stable. It's like either Brock Lesnar or when he was gone, it was CM Punk, and then when he came back, it was one or the other. He doesn't see. He's an advocate. He's not a manager, I guess.
You don't call the ones the bloodline a stable.
Yeah. But he's Roman Reigns. Yeah, I guess.
I mean, listen, when Paul Heyman has the mic, people are listening. And that's the main thing. Doubt. That's the main thing. The reigning, defending, undisputed,
Yeah. Just kick me off the show. Just take my bit away. That's fine. Because if you're gonna say it, you're gonna say it right. The reigning, defending, undisputed. Well, yeah.
You gotta have like the rasp in the throat to almost sound like you're about to throw up on the mic. Reigning, defending.
Yeah, there you go. Not only does he have people listening, they have people literally reciting his entire line. Like he is the crowd is gravitating toward him on either sides of the coin, and he's going to have a major part in WrestleMania. I mean, it's set up that way. Yeah. And for a manager to have such an impact on the main event of the most stupendous WrestleMania ever. Good God. Anyway, I got my own little piece
of all words, but go ahead.
Stupendous. Nobody has ever used that word, and we're not using it now. I just use it just because that's what they say, but that's not going to be part of my vernacular at this point in time. But the fact that Paul Heyman, and then I'm going to take it a step even further back. This is not even him as a manager, but more or a developer of talent. ECW. The work he did with ECW is otherworldly. There's a reason why hardcore and everything. Paul Heyman did that, and I hope to be a Paul Heyman guy too. And I mean, so I agree with Hunter, and I had to step in because he's a guest on the show. I'm a staple of the show. Scottie D been wanting to kick me off and just only wants me to come in during Pepper. So and then he gonna come in and take my line. Wait a minute, this is a conspiracy that we had a nice little balance. Then Hunter gonna come through. And I ain't gonna lie.
Hunter, don't let him go. Eddie's gonna edit all that out. And all that you just heard, you'll never hear that again.
B-Lab is over here having a whole MJF moment. All right, he is.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. One thing I will say, the two things is, Scott, I'm sorry that I blew off your headset just now because I can imagine I was pretty loud on that side. I forgot the second thing I was going to say. I apologize, but
still. You don't have to worry. All that stuff's going to get edited out. We're good.
Keep that. I'm keeping that. But you guys.
Of course, Scott ain't got no control over what's edited.
All right.
So I just recently did watch. I did watch WrestleMania 17 the other day, and Paul Heyman's announce work is amazing. I don't know why.
Yep. Since you guys are talking about Paul Heyman and being in stables, Paul Heyman, a little bit of tidbit, and Scottie D, you might remember this. There was a stable by the name of the Dangerous Alliance, which consisted of Arn Anderson, Larry Sabisco, beautiful Bobby Eaton, Ravishing Rick Rude, stunning Steve Austin.
Yep.
Didn't he go by the name of Paul E. Dangerously?
And he was Paul E. Dangerously. And the former Alundra Blaze, formerly known as Medusa Michelli. All right. So Hunter gave us Paul Heyman. Scottie D, who you got?
I hate to not say Elizabeth because I was gaga over her when I was growing up, when I was in my formidable years, and there she was, beautiful, just beautiful in the sequin thing, you know. But I can't bypass Captain Lou Albano. I think he was like the standard bearer for what managers were, and like Max was talking about, he was very integral part of that rock and wrestling connection. But even before that, one of my all-time favorite moments when I was a kid, I was a fan of the Magnificent Muraco, which I don't know if you would know that him, Hunter, but he was, when I was just a kid, he was the Intercontinental Champion for a long time. Captain Lou was his manager. He managed Crippler Ray Stevens, a couple other guys, the Wild Samoans. He had himself a stable, but Muraco was the Intercontinental Champion. And back in those days on Saturday mornings, I would watch an hour of, they called it studio wrestling. And it was always the stars beat up a jobber. It was, you didn't get nearly the competitive matches that they show on regular TV. And Magnificent Muraco was beating up a guy, and Captain Lou Albano was at ringside, and he would hand him a meatball hoagie, and he would take a bite out of the hoagie and hand it back, and he'd punch a guy and beat it. Then Captain Lou would hand him a Coke, and he would drink the Coke. He literally ate a whole meatball sub. His mouth was full, and he's spilling Coke all over. It was awful and disgusting. It was so perfect that Captain Lou Albano and Magnificent Rock were out there eating a meatball sub while he beat some guy up, and that was fantastic. And I want to do an honorable mention. I don't know if you would even remember this guy, Eddie, because he died when I was very young, but a guy that they called the Grand Wizard of Wrestling.
Yes, he had.
And he was the sunglasses and the multicolored hat. And he was Sergeant Slaughter's manager, and he's one of those old guys that talk like this, and nobody can beat Sergeant Slaughter, that kind of guy. So Grand Wizard of Wrestling was another good one back in the days. How about you, B-Live? Who you got?
Well, I've already mentioned who, because me and Hunter are in agreement with who we think. Oh, yeah. I'm a Paul Heyman guy without question. But I do have an honorable mention, and this is going to be a little bit off topic, but I got to include because he was the manager at one point in time, but I think he did much better work when he was the general manager. I'm Teddy Long, Theodore Long. Holla at a player.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He'd always be setting up matches with The Undertaker. It didn't matter who it was.
You got a match against The Undertaker. He was his own personal hitman. The Undertaker player. Holla.
Man, it just
you got Nunzio over here. He's like,
what? Oh man, but I just wanted to mention him just because, like, just the lengths that he went to, because he started off as a referee. Mm-hmm. He started off as a referee and then became a manager, and then became like he went up the corporate ladder, so to speak. And he was a personality. He added a lot to the product, and I mean, it was just it was dumb, but it was entertaining at the same time, man. I enjoyed it. So I definitely had to mention him. And then somehow that stupid computer became the general manager. That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But I just, God, they thought that was a good idea.
Whoever knew a mechanical device could get so much heat. So they,
I think that's what they were aiming for.
And it worked. It freaking worked.
God, it was so stupid.
Let's also not talk about John Laurinaitis. You know.
Oh,
Hey, Vince, looking kind of vascular, buddy. Oh,
Power to the people. Power to the people.
People power.
John Laurinaitis.
Yeah. I think he suffered that in a match. He did something to his throat, but hey, Vince.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, like
but
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's like, don't have this dude. John Laurinaitis, just
why would you have him on a mic? It's like there's a lot of other things you could do. Like wasn't he like a vice president of talent development?
Yeah.
Talent relations.
Yeah.
It was perfect though. That voice made him annoying. That was perfect.
And see from what I hear, the director of talent relations, that's not a job you want. And so with the masses knowing that he has that job, that made him, I guess, was like, well, since they already hate you, well, let's put your ass on TV and they'll boo you out the building. I think that's one of the main reasons why they did it. But
just want to ask this question because you know better than I would. When it came to what was that nightmare plane ride or whatever?
The plane ride from hell.
Plane ride from hell. Wasn't JR the vice player?
Yep. He sure was.
That was his position at the time.
Yeah.
That's not Jesus.
That is
dealing with all them personalities.
Drunk at 30,000 feet above. There ain't no way in hell. You got Brock Lesnar and Vince McMahon wrestling, or was Brock Lesnar and Mr. Perfect wrestling? But But all right. So go ahead, Scotty. You gonna say something?
I was gonna ask you who your manager choice was.
Oh man, I've been watching. Shout out to my father. I've been watching wrestling as long as I've been alive, and that's one of the things that keeps me connected to him and his memory is my ongoing love for professional wrestling. Whew, I got a list. I'm surprised no one mentioned Bobby the Brain Heenan or the Weasel.
Yeah, he was on that picture that we posted, but no one said him or Paul Bearer. Those are the two pictures I put up.
Yeah.
That was the third for me.
Yep.
Bobby was good, Eddie. Yeah.
Bobby was very good. Bobby was just spot on. His timing was spot on. Like if you put him in a spot, he would literally weasel his way out of a paper bag. And Bobby Heenan was one of the best to ever do it. I mean, he was the best to ever do it on commentary, to be a manager. He was one of the best to ever do it. Let's see. A throwback that somebody mentioned was Skandor Akbar. Now, if you don't know the story about Skandor Akbar, he was a big deal back in Texas, back in the World Class Championship Wrestling days. And he had a stable. What they call the Dungeon? What they call the Dungeon of Doom or Devastation Incorporated? Yeah. So the legendary General Skandor Akbar. I mean, he was a dude from Texas, but I digress. But Skandor Akbar, he was quite the character as well too. And who else? I mean, I couldn't choose one. And then you got Jim Cornette. He go out there and talk trash, and Jim Cornette would say some of the most funniest stuff. He's another guy whose timing was on point and perfect as well too. And then you got Paul Heyman. I feel like I am
slick.
Oh yeah, baby, it's slick, baby. It's slick, baby. Here we go. We got our king, the African dream, the white guy, African dream, my king. Anyways, but yeah, you had slick. So those are my few. Bobby the Brain Heenan, Skandor Akbar. You can't forget James J. Dillon, who is actually a real life manager because I listened to the podcast the Orange Show, and J.J. Dillon was literally in charge of the Four Horsemen, booking flights, hotel rooms, the logistics. He was that guy, and he was a wrestler too. But James J. Dillon was another guy good on the mic as well too. All right,
another good underrated one that gets overlooked a lot was Luscious Johnny Valiant, who had Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine was his guys. He was a good one too.
Was it strutting and cutting? Strutting and cutting, baby. Strutting and cutting. Here we go.
Yeah.
Strutting and cutting. All right, that was a very, very, very great, close to my heart spirit edition of the Choices of the Voices. Scottie D, what's on tap for next week?
We're going back to the world of sports, and I may have asked something similar like this before, but I don't really care. But we're just going to ask in the spirit of March Madness to name us one of your favorite special March Madness moments, something that took place during the NCAA tournament that always stuck with you, and one of your favorite, a buzzer beater or a special win or a heartbreaking loss, any of that stuff, special March Madness moment, and Eddie Cool, that will give us something to talk about next week.
All right. Once again, thank you, Hunter Simboli, for joining us once again. You want to plug anything before you get up out of here?
Yeah, of course. So April 11th will be the first episode of the Guardians Weekly Show. That'd be airing on the Keon Sports YouTube channel. It'll also be on their site as well. But we're going to hype it up for this next month and prepare. That first episode, again, is going to be on 4/11 on the Keon Sports YouTube channel, being the Guardians Weekly Show. So very excited for that. Very excited to get back to work on that as well.
Yep.
Awesome. Congratulations on that.
Congratulations on that, Hunter. And Hunter will be a reoccurring guest during the baseball season and Choices of the Voices. Hunter, we just like having you around, man. We're gonna give you your flowers now. We like having you around. You're fun, you're entertaining, and we just enjoy you, man. We just enjoy you. All right.
Hey, absolutely. I appreciate y'all as well. I appreciate talking about sports because I don't got nobody around me to tell them.
Hey, you know
that's
what?
how we got started.
I promise you.
That's how we got started.
That's how
you talk to yourself, pretty much.
Yeah, that's how we got started. Because Scottie D sent me a text one night. He said, "Man, you know what? I'm talking sports, but these couches won't talk back to me." I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "I got to get something."
Sick
together.
of talking to the couch.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, just something after doing this for 3 years, I annoy the crap out of people now because of the amount of knowledge that I have obtained over the course of 3 years. Because I want to talk about it all the time, even during trivia. Like I am the sports guy on my trivia team, and so I've gained a wealth of knowledge just today by hearing all the stuff that you had about baseball. I want to throw in this real quick for him before he leaves.
Go ahead. We're going to edit it out anyway. Go ahead.
Shut up. Anyway, the baseball draft is actually very similar to most other drafts. And it's just a matter of where if a team drafts you, during that year, they have the rights to, like, you can't go to another team that same year. But if you don't sign with anybody, you just go back into the draft pool and you get drafted again. So essentially, if you get drafted, you don't, only obligation you have is that if you're going to play baseball, you have to sign with that team for that year. But but after that, then it's free game.
Right. Yeah, you're eligible to go back to school to play another year.
Right.
Because most people, the reason why they do that is either they want to get drafted higher, want to make more money based off rep, or from other reason, maybe they just don't like the organization that drafted them. But pretty much.
Yeah. It's less seen in other sports because in baseball it's a 50 round draft. Football,
it's a jog.
Yeah, it's one of the football. You begging to get a chance to get drafted because if you don't get drafted, the free agent pool is very, very, very thin, and it's most likely a chance that you're not going to play football. Baseball, you just have so many opportunities still out there. So I learned that because I did a little quick research. So Hunter, thank you for being on the show. We'll definitely replace you. I'll replace Scotty for you at any given point in time, just like the Braves just did. And we got to get younger, smarter.
Wow.
You've been talking all this trash today. Yeah. Anyway,
this is all going to be edited. It'll all be edited out, Hunter. It's all good. It's all good.
Oh, I'm cool.
We're going to edit him right on out.
Don't worry about it. We're going to edit Scott out as soon as his battery dies on his phone because he probably ain't going to make it the rest of the show.
I know because you won't stop.
I'm doing this on purpose.
He talks to me right out of my battery power every week.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 3rd year anniversary episode of the Sports Bros podcast. We got one more segment. It's called Pepper. And before I go, speaking of players that didn't want to go to teams, that kind of reminds me of how John Elway didn't want to go to the Coast, but instead he went to the Broncos. And I think John Elway also got drafted by the
Yankees.
Yankees. Yep. That's right as well, too. All right, that's all we got. Hunter, you be good. Take care, man. See you on down the road. And coming up next, a round of pepper. Don't sneeze, baby.
Okay, boys, let's bring it home with a round of pepper.
You heard the woman. It's time for us to go home and get the hell up out of here. With that being said, we have another round of pepper. You know how we do it. 3 topics, rapid fire style, kind of, sort of, not really. Here to engage, enlighten, and to entertain, okay? And of course, in typical Pepper fashion, I'll go first, all right? On this day in history, back in 1869, the Cincinnati Red Stockings became the first professional baseball team. Yes, the first professional baseball team originated out of Cincinnati, Ohio. They've had some trials and tribulations, some good years, some bad years, and they eventually changed their name from the Red Stockings to the Cincinnati Reds. All right. And here's a little rundown of the franchise. 5 World Series titles, 9 National League pennants, 1 American Association pennant, that's the old baseball league, 3 National League Central titles, and 7 NL West Division titles. How in the hell do you put Cincinnati in the West when it's just north of Kentucky? Now, a little quick, a little bit of bulletin points about the Cincinnati Reds. They were kicked out of the National League, and that's when they went to the American Association and won the pennant. And then later on down the road, it was like, you know what? You guys been doing pretty good. You've been behaving. All right, come on back to the National League, and they've been there ever since. So on this day in history, the Cincinnati Red Stockings, later to be named Reds, become the first professional baseball team. Over to you, Scottie D.
All right, I want to talk to you about a trade. Didn't see it coming going into the season last year, but Amari Cooper is gone from Dallas and over in your neck of the woods, Eddy Cool, to Cleveland. I knew going into the season last year that Michael Gallup was a goner, and he just signed a new 5-year contract with the Cowboys. Amari Cooper, when he arrived in Dallas in 2018, changed things for Dak Prescott. He became this instant target for him, that his go-to guy, and they had a lot of chemistry. And for whatever reason, he fell off the cliff this year. And I think when it came down to it, Jerry Jones couldn't tolerate the fact that this guy did not get his vaccine shot, missed a couple games of COVID, then went to a basketball game with no mask on, right in the middle of the whole thing. Not to mention he had under 1,000 yards, not so many good games on the road, and his touchdown totals decreased. I don't think Jerry Jones thought it was a good idea to pay $20 million for all that. In return, the Cowboys got a 5th-round pick. Not the best return for having given up a first to get him a couple years ago. You get a couple good years out of him. But hey, we got Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson's gone, Blake Jarwin's gone, Greg the Leg's gone. Big things happening in Big D. Glad Dak has that big contract. Yeah, be live over to you.
Oh, Scottie D, I just love when you segue into my moments, because my first pepper point of the evening also surrounds decisions made by one Jerry Jones, particularly with the money that he decides to spend. And he did not want to spend $20 million on Amari Cooper and being unvaccinated. But maybe Jerry Jones, after he made a mistake early on in his life and decided to do something unmasked, decided to pay a young woman in the tunes of $375,000, according to reports, to a little hush-hush money to not tell anybody that he was the father of her child.
Uh-oh.
Fast forward 25 years later, this woman has decided to sue Jerry Jones and alleges that this is exactly what happened, that Jerry Jones paid off her mother to conceal that he was the biological father. And now she's seeking damages and blah, blah, blah. She's recently divorced, so I'll see how far that goes. There'll probably be some more hush-hush money, but you know how I am when it comes to these franchise owners, whether it be the NBA, NFL, or such and such. They're always on my crap list. Jerry Jones is always going to be on there, along with Donald Sterling, even my very own Jerry Richardson, Dave Snyder, but of course, last but certainly not least, that dirty scoundrel, Robert Kraft. We will hold these billionaires responsible for their actions. Get your life together. Do better. Stop paying off women. Be a father to that woman. Eddy Cool. The ball.
Did you hear there was going to be like a revamped version of the Nasty Boys? And do you know who the group is going to consist of?
Oh, boy.
Jerry Richardson, Jerry Jones, and Robert Kraft. All right, moving along to my second pepper point. Brian Knobs and Jerry Sags. Get out of here. We got real Nasty Boys in the house. All right, So here we go. Second pepper point. Pretty good damn joke. I thought that on the fly too. Boy, I've been on it today. All right. My second pepper point. Of course, when it comes to color commentary, I'm learning, the ins and outs and everything. And so Joe Buck, he said, you know what? I'm going to follow Troy Aikman. That's right. Joe Buck, he leaves Fox as well too, and joins Troy Aikman as the voices of Monday Night Football. According to the New York Post, Joe has inked a 5-year deal with ESPN worth anywhere between $60 to $75 million, and will also do projects for ESPN. Wow. You're talking about some credibility for the Monday night product. You got two of the best to ever do it, man. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Because you can't have one without the other. With that being said, over to you, Scottie D.
Yeah, I'm not super big on that whole switch to Monday night thing, but hey, what are you going to do? Right. And Jerry Jones actually just signed DeMarcus Lawrence to a 3-year extension, probably trying to kick a little bit more money down the road. But anyway, I want to talk to you about a trade. And when I heard it Sunday night, I was thrilled. And that's when I heard that the Yankees had traded catcher Gary Sanchez. And I was thrilled before I even found out who they got back, just because Gary Sanchez is a lazy defensive catcher and he's a strikeout king. The big name they were getting back is Josh Donaldson. But for me, the secret sauce comes in the fact that the Yankees are going to get a shortstop out of the deal. They're getting a guy that actually played for the Texas Rangers, got traded to the Twins the other day, and his name is Isaiah Falefa. If I said that wrong, forgive me. But the guy won a Gold Glove 2 years ago. He hit about 270, and the Yankees desperately needed somebody to plug in at shortstop. So, hey, big things are happening. I'm not sure if this is going to shift the infield around to keep Freddie Freeman out of New York. I know we talked about that earlier, B-Live, but with DJ LeMahieu at second and Gleyber Torres going from shortstop possibly back to second, LeMahieu may shift over to first. Interesting to see how this whole thing shakes out with the Yanks. But I know this. Gary Sanchez is gone, baby. B-Live, over to you.
Oh, man. Oh, Yankees. All right. Who cares? All right, moving on. Second pepper point. I said what I said. Oh, man, this was actually a good feel-good story right now, because this story goes back about a good decade where a team in Boston by the name of the Celtics ushered in a new era of basketball in the terms of they would probably be the first team that ushered in the Big Three era when it comes to the likes of Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. Well, and they won the 2008 championship, and they did big things in Boston, and it ushered in a new era, because shortly after that, then you had D Wade and Chris Bosh and LeBron James form their nice little Big Three union in Miami. What happened though with when that Big Three formed, Ray Allen became a free agent and decided that he also was going to take his talents down to South Beach, as opposed to re-signing with the Boston Celtics. And Kevin Garnett did not like that at all. But and it's been well documented. But I can say as of today, Kevin Garnett's number 5 jersey is retired in the Boston Garden, the TD Garden, or whatever they call themselves these days. But Boston Celtics, of course, a storied franchise. During his retirement ceremony, Ray Allen was in attendance and was invited by Kevin Garnett. And Kevin Garnett said during his speech, he said, "It's good to see Ray Allen here. It's good to see you, man. You next, dog." And it seems like a decade-long rift between the two that's been well documented. You even saw that at the 75th anniversary celebration, where they really didn't talk to each other. But it was reported that after it was all said and done behind the scenes, they did get a chance to talk, and they buried the hatchet. So it's good to see that two people, Hall of Famers, both of them Hall of Famers, without question, are able to get along and bury the hatchet. Eddy cool the ball.
All right. And my third and final pepper point, I ain't got one. No, I just want to say thank you for 3 years of the Sports Bros podcast. The shout out to the Almighty B Live. Shout out to the Money Man Scottie D. A real quick story. The podcast, the idea was conceived back in 2018 after my mother passed away in December. So I needed something to keep me going, something to keep my mind in track. And Scottie D was like, hey, these here couch cushions ain't talking back. And I was like, oh, I think Scottie D, we were in Daniela's in North Myrtle Beach, where we were talking about the Sports Bros podcast. If I remember, we were in Daniela's talking about that. We kind of had a little brief conversation about that, and then trying to figure out and put everything to work. And then, Almighty B Live was, had to go do his just due. And as soon as he came out and was ready, I said, hey man, I got something for you to do. And here we are, 3 years and 147 episodes later. I just want to say, fellas, I love y'all. Thank you. Thank you so much for just spending every Monday evening with me, doing this here podcast and doing what we do best, talking sports, just the way we like it. It's a Sports Bros podcast, by the fan, for the fan. Sports talk, just the way you like it. And we're only getting started. Over to you, Scottie D.
Well said, man. I've enjoyed for sure these 3 years. And this, I tell you, especially in 2020 during the pandemic when I wasn't talking to anybody and I was hiding in the house, this was very, very good for my mental health. But I do want to talk to you about a trade, and I'm talking to you about trading blows. And this was at the UFC pay-per-view last week when Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington, who hated each other so much, got in there and then just wrestled. And Colby just laid on him. It was a terrible pay-per-view that night. It was a terrible match. A lot of laying on things. But anyway, Jorge Masvidal has fooled me for the last time. I'm no longer interested in watching him fight. He talks a big game. He had one big flying knee against Ben Askren, and then he popped Nate Diaz's eye open in Madison Square Garden and won the BMF belt. And since then, he's lost twice to Kamaru Usman. Now he's lost to Colby Covington. And I think he's just not quite at that level that these other guys are at now, these top guys in the division. And Colby Covington wants to move on and fight Dustin Poirier. I don't know where you go with Masvidal. He just signed a new deal with UFC, so he's got more fights coming up. But sign me up is not all that interested anymore in Jorge Masvidal. Hate to say it, Game Bread, but I think your time has come and gone. Be Live, over to you.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was not a good fight at all. And I'm going to close this out the way I know how to do things, because a third and final pepper point got to come with it. Before I get into that real quick, man, when I tell you I was in the penalty box, real life penalty box for about 5 months, this was a lifesaver. 3 years later, I love both of y'all, man. I love this to the bottom of my heart.
Yes, sir.
So I'm gonna go ahead and get that out the way, you know what I'm saying, and get all choked up. But
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. God, you're still an ass. All right, cool. Well, but at least we can get it together, and we can come together and do our thing a little bit better than a couple of teams in the NBA, because you would think the multi-million-dollar, close to $1 billion organization in the NBA, they have people in place to make sure that you come out of the locker room in the correct uniform. Well, that did not happen when it came to the Memphis Grizzlies and Oklahoma City Thunder. This game was played in Memphis, and both teams decided to come out in their white uniforms. Now, Oklahoma City had a choice of what uniform they were going to wear. They had posted on the NBA site that they were going to wear their white jerseys. So Memphis would have to wear their blue jerseys, and that's what Memphis posted. Somehow the wires got crossed. They come out the locker room and do their whole practice and warm-ups and everything. They're both wearing the white uniforms. It wasn't noticed until the game was about to start. They're about to do tip-off, and wait a minute. Houston, we have a problem. Y'all both, everybody wearing white. I don't know who's on what team. They both have very similar color schemes. So the Memphis players got sent back to their locker room Y'all will have to change, get it together, and as Scottie D would say, do better. Come on, bro. You come out there.
Make a phone call. Maybe make a phone call.
Who is in charge? What happened? What is going on? What happened? And man, but you know what? I was over here, I was scratching my head and shoulders. We need that sponsorship money. And very soon, there will be another episode of What Happened. Stay tuned. Year 4 of the Sports Bros podcast.
Underway.
Yes,
we're underway. Year 4.
Underway. And before we get out of here, we got to report some sad yet tragic news. Two-time WWE Hall of Famer and co-founder of the NWO, Scott Hall, has been called home to the big squared circle in the sky. Scott Hall had complications after surgery he suffered from complications after undergoing hip surgery. He had a few heart attacks, blood clots, and they took him off life support earlier today. And Scott Hall, the bad guy, Razor Ramon, has passed away.
Loved him
today. And in honor of the bad guy, that's the reason why. Yes. Well, let me do it again, Scotty. Hold on. Let me put it on gallery view here. Hey, yo. Chico. And if you got a toothpick, flick a toothpick for the bad guy. That's why I got this shirt on today. For the one, the only, the legend himself, the two-time Hall of Famer, Scott Hall. Scott Hall, do me a favor, man. Tell my daddy I said hello there, all right? All right, with that being said, we got all our choices of the voices out the way. We finna get the hell up out of here and go watch us some wrestling. That's right, we gotta go watch us some wrestling. Thanks again. Be-Live, wait a minute, before we go, don't you have a special shout out to somebody?
Yes, want to give a shout out to my man Stan Sagley and the Lucky Duck Burger Truck right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Special shout out to him, man. Food is absolutely delicious. I will find out more details about where they are located from here. They're up and coming company, up and coming food truck here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Food is phenomenal. Check them out. The Lucky Duck Burger Truck, Stan Sagley. Appreciate the love, man. From the Sports Bros podcast. Yes, sir.
Oh, shuck it, duck it, quack, quack. And then in closing, do something nice for yourself. And if you can do something nice for someone else, they'll greatly appreciate it now more than ever. And if you can, please be a blessing and not a burden. Thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Scott Hall. Love each other. Take care. It's been another episode of the Sports Bros podcast. Be-Live, get us out of here. Be-Live, get us out of here. Give us a yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all take care. Be good.